fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy scandal, we can't buy time. You can't fool me again. Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. Hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. You touch up line and a resort to crime. You can't fool me again.
What people do in no money, what they at you, in no at you. Go be money, miss away in the yellow correct you. Use the youth, the money, waste my must have mantis statue. Say me like a catch you, but they got in a figure you. Take this kid of money, God and say that is not you. One day the man above end up, him a got a bet. Too much it in the kitchen, some a fly by like a patu. When singers and DJs and social media's coming at you.
It burn me
300% free.
It burn me
Garbage pile of it.
It burn me
Give the teacher them raise.
It burn me
I see corruption peace.
It burn me
Mash down the people them house.
It burn me
Every day appear arms out.
It burn me
Appear money them a thief.
It burn me
And them a sell out the beach.
Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy scandal, we can't buy time. You can't fool me again. Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. You touch up line and a resort to crime. You can't fool me again.
For me say big up all the charities and all of the givers. Some a go like say them powerful, me no make a bigger. The 100 promises, none of them not deliver. Cut up the youth and rapper, they down in our river. Member bowl money and they lie them tell. Corruption smell and they pocket them swell. When police don't a market like Satan out of hell, go mash up people start like thief when them sell.
It burn me
Or they treat the market man.
It burn me
Or them a treat the cat man.
It burn me
Or they treat the peanut man.
It burn me
Or them a treat the dirt man.
It burn me
Or them a treat the son man.
It burn me
Or them a treat policeman.
It burn me
How them a treat soldier man.
It burn me
How them a treat everyone.
Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy scandal, we can't buy time. You can't fool me again. Can't fool me again. You can't.
Boom! I mean, I say a couple to the flex they represent for Wayne Global TV. There. So I say, you know the code in the Wayne Global TV is what fully blessed on the 90 days. So I say, yeah man, to the fullest. Yeah man, make sure them log in to Wayne Global TV. So I say, check it out. So I say, one cup of flex. So I say, Wayne Global. When you watch you know, feel my plan up and I try to put them money pan we head. But man, I live too long, them want Wayne Global fitted. To him juggle so smooth that them want him life for dread. I throw the bank, I like the break, but we ain't all about the bread. We open up in the ears and don't listen when we said, cause we lyrics them so smooth like the linen pan the bed. Them one with a fall, chill living pan the edge, I must say true, who make this them. We ain't Global TV, we are 90, anointed. Who Jaja bless, say no man can curse. Give me the Range Rover, uno drive years. Boom! We in Global TV to the fullest one cup of excellence. See me?
If you're following the Gleaner cartoonist is saying one of them are lying. Our question to ask this evening is, who is lying? The People's National Party said they are ahead in their internal polling. The JLP say they are ahead in their internal polling. The Gleaner cartoonist is saying one of them are lying. We're asking this evening, who is lying? And what is the quick kickback war at the local government level, if there is one? And we're also asking, what should happen to Silvera? Good evening and welcome to another of your program. This is Drive Time London, Lunchtime Global. Good evening to those on TikTok, to those on X, to those on the Twitch, to those on Facebook, on YouTube. Welcome to Global TV. Good evening, and to everyone in the chat, a pleasant good evening to you. Wherever you are logging in from, on the eastern side, it would be your afternoon. It is our drive time in London this evening, and we're saying good evening to Debbie Jervis, good evening to Arlene Forrest, good evening. And looking at the comments, I can see you had your birthday recently. I want to say to you, happy belated birthday, and thank you for being a supporter of this platform. Thank you very much, Arlene. Thank you very much, and happy belated birthday. I hope you had a blast. Beat and Teach, good evening. Good evening to Natalia. Good evening to Dorothy Elliott. Good evening to Patricia Matthews. Good evening. Good evening. How are you? Good evening to who else is here. Good evening to Mr. British. Good evening. Good evening. How are you? Good evening. Good evening and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Good evening, BCA Sims. Good evening and welcome. Thank you all for joining us this evening on Next. Good evening, Senorita. Good evening. Good evening, Parkin. Good evening and welcome. Good evening, Jason. Kind. Good evening and welcome to this another of your Drive Time London, Lunchtime Global Program. Good evening to Prime Minister, some people. Because let's see the good evening to Noreen. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Good evening. I see a former president of the PSOJ referring to the Prime Minister as some people on a stinging criticism of the Prime Minister's shoddy, lowest ever employment level, and the whole bringing in foreign labor to fill the employment gap we're having. So the PSOJ, the former president of the PSOJ, is asking, where are going to pay them? We have the lowest set of wages across the Caribbean. Where are going to pay them? You think to say people are going to come from abroad to come work for $400 a what set or rather? Or if Jamaicans at home are work for peanuts, no, so you take up somebody from abroad and come and pay them more and way. Them Jamaican were dead a batter and a suffer again. It would be a bangarang. These are my interpretation. So therefore, if you read the articles in the description area, you can read it for yourself. For me, coming from a former president of the PSOJ, it was a stinging criticism and wholeness policy. One of the things that he alluded to in his lecture was that wholeness is not investing in education to prepare Jamaican youths for the 21st century economic and marketplace and where we're all going. Rather than he would be arguing, focusing on bringing in labor from other countries. You need to change the education model that is woefully holding back our country. And not only the model, the failure, the dilapidation and the failure of our education system, the brain drain of our especially experienced teachers in our education system. So for me, that was a stinging criticism. Good evening, Sharon Powell. Good evening. How are you? For me, that was a stinging criticism coming from a former PSOJ president who, no doubt, good evening, Lilith Foster, good evening, who no doubt these people would at some point give their advice to Andrew in private or whatever, how to prepare Jamaica for the next, for where the economic technology market is going. Jamaica Politics Uncovered. Good evening and welcome. Good evening. Good evening. So for me, that was a stinging criticism coming from the PSOJ former president to say, you're not preparing Jamaica to be economically viable the way our education structure is. So therefore, rather than looking at bringing in foreign labor, what the government should be looking at doing is train the current generation. Train the current generation to make sure. Good evening, Prof. Gorgeous Lady. Good evening. Train the current generation to make sure, look at our education model, look at what is not working, look at what we need to implement, what we need to change. Douglas, good evening. What we need to change in order to meet a 21st century changing, technologically advanced world, new economics model, new financial structures and models are about to be implemented globally. And what our Prime Minister is thinking about, rather than looking at how can we change our education model to meet a 10 to 20 year development plan of changing the economic structure and development of this country. This man is rather just playing with your minds because he knows the power of words and gimmickry and all that is coming with it. Give us some like and share for those who are on the live, please. Let us have some likes and some share. So one of the things that, even though it's a local government, and I'm going to veer into the kickback war and the local government galanging after this. No matter it's a local government, we need to be focused. And this is where I'm going to go into explain why we need to be focused, especially at the local government level. I'm going to go on a bit of ponder. But before I do, I'll explain my understanding of the on-paper structure of how your local government should work. Your local government is divided into two bits. You have the policy side and you have the administrative side. Your councillor and mayor are the ones responsible for the policy making at the local government level. And then the administrative team, the administrative side, who are the managers for different brouhaha across that particular municipality, city, or division, is responsible to implement those policies into strategies and make them operatable on the ground with the funding that trickles down from central government that comes to local government on, I think, a monthly or 2-monthly basis in order for the running of your constituency, of your local government. So there's a lot of money spending. Focus on this. At the local government level, in our politics, there is an awful lot of money spending that goes on at that level. And that would lead me into my wonder further on. There's a lot of money spending. Keep focus on this. there's a lot of money spending that goes on at the local government level. Global TV will take a break, and when we come back, we will continue our conversation.
Global TV send another one. Oh, 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 oh. Global TV, I send them home. Yeah, man, this is Michael Buckley. I tell you, say, yo, the Global TV, yeah, man, me represent that 100%. Play the music, Global. Boom, shot.
Thank you and welcome back to Global TV. This is your evening program, a Drive Time London Lunchtime Global. Thank you all for being here with us this evening. Now, your municipality, your local government, I'll just stick to local government because the ministry word tripped me up, is responsible for the upkeep and the running and the development of quite a few things within their patch. They are responsible for minor water supply and social water. They are responsible for the beautification of any parks or social space across that municipality. If the cemetery, they are responsible for the upkeep and all the operations of the cemeteries. Your market area, they are responsible for the running of your market area. They are responsible for the running of your abattoirs, where your meat get butchered and distributed from. They're responsible for the pound that your vehicle or your animal would go to, should that be a necessity. They are responsible for the upkeep, upgrade, and fixing of your local roads. They are responsible for whatever sustainable development project and mechanism or whatever they can put in your division to make sure that's a thriving, developing community. They are responsible. This is one of the things that we know across the country that they don't do. They are responsible for keeping your gullies and your drains clean. So my God, on the plate where we sit on in the region, where we can have massive rainfall, if our gullies and our drains were kept to a standard, the flooding, the impact of the flooding would be of a lesser than what we can see across the island at times, because a lot of that is a consequences of blocked drains or untreated or unkept drain and gullies. Another thing they're responsible for is the street lighting across your patch. They're responsible for the infirmaries and the local social services and a lot of other things within your community. So they get an awful lot of funding from local government, from central government, for the upkeep of the entire municipality. Everybody get there, every different councillor. Say, for example, we're working with the number that every MP we have, we're just working with the numbers, because don't get me confused with numbers this evening. Every MP we have about 4 councillors working with them. Let's work with number 4 when we understand and go check me up. So therefore, this is where I waddle into the kickback, because that money coming from central government to the municipality for the upkeep of all these different things that I've just mentioned, such as the upkeep of your local area, the money they're getting, or sidewalks should be trimmed on a regular basis and upkeep, so Bush and Makana joke out with eye when we walk on the local road and vehicle pass at high speed and we have to squeeze up on the gully. Some of these money could build pavements to give us little more way from the risk of how we have to catch up in a sidewalk from vehicle in Jamaica, because they have the budget to do our local roads. You may ask, why are they not being done? Keep focused on the fact that there is a lot of money that is dispersed at the local government level. Right. Keep that in focus. I'm going to come back to that. Let you swallow that. And then I'll go on to something else. And then see somebody is saying local government, Beaton teachers saying local government get property tax as well. We're going to come back to the wonder and ponder. But I'm going to quickly go back to something I said to you yesterday. I'm going to quickly go back to something. Remember my Fitzbailey rant yesterday. And I spoke of an officer, Inspector Ritchie. Those who know him on the ground know him as Law and Order. That's the name he's known for on the street. The reason why he's been given this name is because he enforces the law in the way it should be. He doesn't take order from corrupt cops or government official above him. Agnostic, good evening, good evening. He doesn't take orders from those above him. To cover up and corrupt the system. In fact, this man saw it necessary to remove Pilly Black's firearm. Pilly Black is the friend of the Prime Minister Don Man. He saw the need to remove Pilly Black's gun. We looked at least 5 murders yesterday. We look at least 5 high-profile murders yesterday. Which were covered up. Which Fitzbailey is implicit in the cover-up of those 5 murders we explored yesterday. But we're going to ask Fitzbailey further question. What were you like when you were at the organized crime unit, Fitzbailey? What were you like when you were at the organized crime unit? Were you corrupt as you are corrupt now? How did you deal with the drugs bust? The money and the drugs accumulated from drugs bust, Fitzbailey. Did you process those through the court? Or did you demand your percentage of the loot to keep it all under wraps? Is it this a reason, Fitzbailey, why we're always seeing drugs bust in our country, but no one has been arrested, Pastor Fitzbailey? Now, if you have a man like Inspector Ritchie, good evening, Angela, good evening. If you have a man like Inspector Ritchie, Law and Order, who is prepared to take a firearm off the Prime Minister Badman friend, do you think Horace Chang would still be in our parliament? Do you think a lot of those murders that you cover up, these people would have gotten away with it? You think Mr. Silvera, would have been given the chance, Fitzbailey, to attend the funeral of his alleged victim? Do you, Fitzbailey, Reverend Fitzbailey, a man of the cloth, think that under Inspector Ritchie, crime and portfolio leadership, under Inspector Ritchie, crime and portfolio leadership in the JCF, do you think Julian Silvera would have been given the chance to attend the funeral of Melissa Silvera? Think on that. When you go on the pulpit, Fitzbailey. But then Serrano Kitson stood there in the injustice and never saw it possible once to use the word justice. Julian Silvera's speech never used the word love or justice when it comes to Melissa Silvera. The way Inspector Ritchie applied the law, do you think if Jamaica is serious about crime fighting, bringing in fresh minds and fresh ideas, dedicated people, people with integrity, dedicated crime fighters, new thinking, do you think maybe we would be getting a grip on crime if we remove somebody like Fitzbailey, who has provenly is corrupt when it comes to covering up murder, provenly in public, and it is alleged was very corrupt, when at the organized crime unit, when it comes to drug bust and his percentage of the loot, rather than bringing those responsible for drug and gun trafficking to the books. As the Deputy Commissioner with the portfolio for crime and security, you rather demand your share of the loot to keep silence. How can we believe, Fitzbailey, that you haven't done that? When in front of us, you told us publicly lies to cover up murders. So how can we believe that when you were at the crime unit, the organized crime unit, you weren't enriching yourself, Fitzbailey? You weren't enriching yourself, Fitzbailey, from the proceeds of crime. These are relevant questions to ask those who lead us, those who lead our crime fighting and security. If those are true, a criminal is leading our crime fighting, we know that a corrupt liar of a pastor is leading our crime fighting. He lied on camera about the death of Reverend Moore. Let me remind him, if him thinks that I lie, me I tell upon him.
It is my understanding that the postmortem for the late Reverend Orville Moore was done today, and the cause of death was determined to be strangulation. It's not really surprising because we had that suspicion. So far, we have no evidence or any suspicion based on our investigation that a third party was traveling with him.
but the investigation is open, and we're appealing to the public. If they have any information, to call our NIB tip line at 811, Crime Stop at 311, or Police Emergency 811. But we continue to do lines of inquiries. We have been able to, based on we have seen sight of the Reverend at different points of the journey, and we have not seen where there was a third party or a second person in the vehicle with him.
So we know that was a lie. Fitz Bailey know that was a lie. Good evening and welcome, Overcomer. Good evening. We know that was a lie. Fitz Bailey know that was a lie. So when we call Fitz Bailey as a liar and someone who cover up murder in public, it was the same thing with the Prime Minister's attorney after he murdered that young man in his house. Fitz Bailey was the one who told us there was no break-in and entry, but Dr. Mande, crooked liar Mande, Patrick Bailey, hasn't been arrested, charged, or brought before the books. Was that why you given Julian Silvera the opportunity to attend the funeral of his victim? But Bobby Montague said this, and after I play what Bobby Montague said, I'm going to go back to my local government ponder, and then I will come back.
Victims and the victims' families, they will say this parliament is pursuing injustice rather than justice. And this parliament, Madam Speaker, must balance and ensure that the victims and the victims' families feel that the sentence that we are sending and the sentence of the court reflect the act that the offender did to the victim. Amen. No, we are not going to hang them. Amen. And I'm the first to tell you I don't believe in hanging. But Madam Speaker, we cannot just knock young offenders 14 to 17 on their wrist. We have to lock them up for a long period of time and let them reflect and improve their ways. As intimated, I ask for the suspension of the debate, and I will allow all members who want to speak the time to speak. Next week or the week after. Thanks.
Madam, I believe that the offer from the minister, I just want to get it very clear that it will not be suspended or ended next week. Because I have very strong views. Because we cannot ask the taxpayers of Jamaica.
Your suitable comments were sufficiently indicative of your strong views. You will have a chance
to pay for mind them.
You will have a chance for that member. Your mic is on for us to get that clarity.
I apologize, madam.
Yes, you will have.
Must hang them.
No. House leader, order in the parliament. So, order in the parliament, member. Please take your seat.
Hang them, Bobby Montague says. The taxpayer shouldn't pay to feed them in a prison. In a reference to a question to do with the raising the sentencing guidelines for youths 14 to 17-year-old who commit murder. Hang them, Bobby Montague said, but we will come back to that. Back to my local government ponder. Bear in mind that I spoke to you about the lot of money that is distributed at the local government level for the upkeep of your constituency, your division. And remember, we also said we're working with the number 4 councillor per MP in a constituency. So there's a working relationship between those. A lot of the contracts, especially the big contract like to fix all of our local roads rather, would be under the portfolio of our local councillor to get all of those done. The money is distributed coming down from central government and is distributed at that level. The councillor would arrange the contract with whatever contractor that is going to do whatever work needs to be done on your local road, because those are some of the biggest contracts, especially when it comes to the money swindling and misappropriation and basically laundering your money. The MPs in our crooked politics, as a councillor, always observing good evening, as a councillor, you have to be swinging the MP's game. Remember, we're pondering. Say, for example, you have a crooked MP. Because of the upkeep of your constituency division and all that money that keeps trickling down to those 4 councillors to keep your constituency upkeep, that's a lot of money. Possibly more than what is distributed to the MP at the central government level. So our political system developed a corrupt system, which is referred to as this corrupt practice that involved in this political spheres and the big contract spheres is highly embedded in our politics, especially at the local government level, where when a contract is being awarded, you will have people who know how the thing run. So the councillor, the MP, will have him bad man or associated bad man friend or man will give orders or man with influence, who will go tap that councillor upon his shoulder. We have that big money to do that project. And what MPs would do in our crooked politics, then you have to use the money, do a study undercut job. Then that percentage won't misappropriate, would share between the MP and the councillor. The MP want for him cut. One of the things we can cause rivalry between MP and councillor of the same party, where a party controls the local government of the constituency and the central government of the constituency. What you would expect then, because we have a Labour right MP in the constituency, and all of the councillor them in that constituency are Labour right. So you would expect you have a good working relationship. In our corrupt politics, not quite so. If you have a corrupt MP who want to enrich himself of that money that is trickling down into your, that is coming down to upkeep and develop your division. And that councillor in that division now play the MP crooked game, then wahala. They are going to do everything to discredit and get rid of that councillor who now play the kickback card, and rather than putting in meaningful work in the division to improve and develop the division, improve people's livelihood and viability, economic viability, the social upkeep of people and the services that look out for the social aspects of those within your division. Could this work in relationship where if a councillor is not prepared to misappropriate your money, come hell or high water, they have to go? We see two instances of this at the moment. It's still a ponder. We see two instances of this at the moment that's happening within the Jamaica Labour Party. There's a brouhaha with Nesta Morgan and one of the councillors in his constituency, where he described Nesta Morgan as a despot and a dictator and all sorts. We're also having a situation in Portland where one of the vases, I think Darrell, Janet, good evening, is unseating a sitting councillor to put their favorability councillor in that position. Is it a situation where we're still in our ponder? Is it a situation where these councillors have to go before local government election because they are not prepared to play the kickback game? I will take a break and then I will come back.
Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy scandal, we can't buy time. You can't fool me again. Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. Hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. You touch up line and a resort to crime. You can't fool me again.
What we gonna eat no money, what we at you, eat no at you. Could be money, miss away in the yellow correct you. Use the youth, the money, waste and must have anti-statue. Say me like a catch you, but they got enough, they got you. Take this spit of money, God and say that is not you. One day the man above end up, him a got up. Too much eating at the kitchen, some a fly by like a patu. When singers and DJs and social media's coming at you.
It burn me.
300% freeze.
It burn me.
Garbage pile up the day.
It burn me.
Give the teacher them raise.
It burn me.
I see corruption please.
It burn me.
Mash down the people them house.
It burn me.
Every day appear arms out.
It burn me.
Appear money them a thief.
It burn me.
And them a sell out the beach.
Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy scandal, we can't buy time. You can't fool me again. Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. You touch up line and a resort to crime. You can't fool me again.
me say big up all the charities and all of the givers. Some a go like say them powerful, me no make a bigger. The urgent, the promises, none of them not deliver. Cut up the youth, the rapper, they down in our river. Member bold only and they lie them tell. Corruption smell and they pocket them swell. When police don't a market like Satan out of hell, go mash up people start like thief when them sell.
It burn me.
Or they treat the market man.
It burn me.
Or them a treat the cat man.
It burn me.
Or they treat the peanut man.
It burn me.
Or them a treat the dirt man.
It burn me.
Or them a...
Yes, good evening and welcome back. A lot of your money at the local government level that should go into the development and upkeep of your constituency get wasted under this corrupt money grabbing scheme called kickbacks, where when you have corrupt councillor and corrupt MP, an awful lot of the money that should go into the development of your constituency and your division is get wasted and misappropriated and literally thieving your money through that awful kickback scheme that they all implement in swindling the public purse. So my question is, in Clarendon and in Portland, this brouhaha we see going on between JLP MPs and JLP councillors, could this be one of the kickback wars? Could it be one of the kickback wars where these councillors are not prepared to give MP for them cut out of the contract? This is all a reason why at the local government level, we need to focus on who we are electing to run our division, because that person, an awful lot of money on a monthly or 2-monthly basis is distributed to them for the upkeep and the development of your division. Keep your street light operating and running. Make sure there's more street light in more areas. Make sure these ghastly potholes, these riverbed in the middle of your local road, these local roads that's never been fixed from Siaga and Manly days. These local roads, when no councillor or MP, no our members exist, a lot of those money that were meant to go into those mud and water road wasn't still a walk on. A lot of these kickback money go into those misappropriation because of how these projects are run by corrupt MPs and corrupt councillors working all against you in order to enrich themselves and swindle your money. Could this be that possible type of war going on in Clarendon in Nestor's constituency and in Portland in Darrell Vaugh's constituency, just as we are approaching local government election? They must spruce up the thing to make sure say whoever hold the seat have to make sure say them a make me get my cut out of the thing. Is this war between MP and councillor, JLP, MP and councillor in Clarendon and in Portland, is this a war over kickback arrangements? Because if you understand our politics, this system is ingrained in our politics, and it's by which a lot of the money that should go into developing your ward constituency at the wider level get swindled into this kickback. And these people who only give contract to their friends, who will make sure they get a middleman share of the money that should go in to make sure your local water supply is efficient and constant. Your pumping stations are serviced. The edges of your riverbeds are maintained. Your gullies are clean and clear. Your drainage are all cleared, especially in our rainy season. But because these money get distributed to different friends, different corrupt friends, under the kickback scheme, the work in your constituencies and ward for 50 years has not been done, because every administration, your money goes into that kickback scheme. Therefore, very little get done in your constituency and division, and very much has gone into the pocket of councillors, MPs, and their crooked contractor friends. You must be aware of how your political system operates. Who are the people you're electing to represent you, to distribute your fund, to control the budget, and run your financial affairs within your constituency and ward. We are choosing criminals to lead us. We are choosing thieves to lead us. We are choosing corrupt criminals to lead us. Hence the situation in our politics and in our country. It's a difficult task, because at the highest level of government and at the highest level of law enforcement, they are corrupt to the core. How do we successfully fight a system like this, that those who meant to implement policies to protect us do not, and are involved in that which oppresses us and continue to develop and increase crime? Hang them, Bobby Montague says. In reference to 14 to 17-year-old, hang them, Bobby Montague said. I wonder if the politicians over the years who have really swindled our money, use ghetto children to commit their crime for political control of wards and constituencies. I wonder, Bobby Montague, what should happen? What should happen to those politicians who embezzled our money and put no development in our garrison communities other than guns? I wonder, Bobby Montague, what should happen to those MP? Hang them, Bobby Montague says. Hang them, Bobby Montague says. Arlene, I don't support hanging. I really don't, because to apply such a punishment, you have to have a rigorous and a fair justice system. We do not have that. Just on that basis alone, I disagree with that type of punishment for anyone in Jamaica, because if a case is cooked up by a corrupt cop and a corrupt DPP. And on review of that statement, you realize that you've hung the wrong person. You cannot reverse that. You can reverse a life sentence. You can reverse a 30-year sentence. What you cannot do, once you have executed the death penalty, you cannot reverse that. And for a corrupt law enforcement system, a corrupt justice system, on that basis, I wouldn't support the death penalty. Not even for Silvera or Noel Maitland. I wouldn't. Hang them, Bobby Montague says. Hang them, Bobby Montague says. Bobby Montague. Delia Graham, good evening. Hang them, Bobby Montague says. This is a member of Parliament. Hang them, Bobby Montague says.
Victims and the victims' families, they will say this Parliament is pursuing injustice rather than justice. And this Parliament, Madam Speaker, must balance and ensure that the victims and the victims' families feel that the sentence that we are sending and the sentence of the court reflect the act that the offender did to the victim. No, we are not going to hang them. And I'm the first to tell you I don't believe in hanging. But Madam Speaker, we cannot just knock young offenders 14 to 17 on their wrist. We have to lock them up for a long period of time and let them reflect and improve their ways. As intimated, I ask for the suspension of the debate, and I will allow all members who want to speak the time to speak. Next week or the week after. Thanks.
Madam, I believe that the offer from the minister, I just want to get it very clear that it will not be suspended or ended next week. Because I have very strong views. Because we cannot ask the taxpayers of Jamaica.
Your suitable comments were sufficiently indicative of your strong views. You will have a chance
to pay for mind them.
You will have a chance for that member. Your mic is on for us to get that clarity.
I apologize, madam.
Yes, you will have.
Hang them.
No. House leader, order in the Parliament. So, order in the Parliament, member. Please take your seat.
What if we were to apply punishment to Bobby Montague? Prospective power, good evening. For the money that Bobby Montague swindled from our public purse, what would be the punishment for Bobby Montague? But on the screen here, Bobby Montague was one of those who was queuing up to give his condolences to Julian Silvera. Bobby Montague, it is said, is a friend of Julian Silvera. It is also said that Bobby Montague, because remember we hear say Silvera, broke pocket, him a worthless, him a susso, him a good for nothing, a big and good for nothing. And so we hear say Silvera be big and good for nothing. So him a susso. We also heard that Bobby Montague retained the services of King's Counsel Peter Champagne, who only got there just because he come from a rich family, because ever so often him showing a public him not so bright. Bobby Montague maybe were lied to when he put this condolences out after he spoke to Julian Silvera, who told him Melissa Silvera passed away, died peacefully in her sleep next to him, with Julian at her side. Of course, Julian was at Melissa's side, Bobby Montague. But did Julian died peacefully? Or was Silvera at Melissa's side, consoling her in her final moment? Which of them are you talking about? But after the post-mortem result, Bobby Montague, you realize you lied. You were given a lie to told. You were lied to. Not you lied. You were lied to. What is your opinion now? Now that you know that the information given to you by Julian Silvera was a lie to bolster and aid his cover-up of the killing of his wife. If law and order did get the job, if law and order was given the opportunity to lead our crime and security, maybe people like Bobby Montague would have been long arrested and charged for the embezzlement of our public purse. Now that Bobby Montague realized that Mrs. Silvera did not die peacefully. Hello, Paula. Good evening and welcome. Now that Bobby Montague realized that Mrs. Silvera didn't die peacefully in her sleep with Julian at her side, what is the punishment, Bobby Montague, that Julian Silvera should get? Do you think justice should be served to Melissa Silvera, Bobby Montague? Do you think the taxpayers, Bobby Montague? Do you think the taxpayers should be using their money? Sorry. You think the taxpayers should be using their money to pay for Silvera's upkeep? To pay for Silvera's upkeep in prison? If we should, Bobby Montague, hang or 14 to 17-year-olds who've committed murder, what should we do, Bobby Montague, with your friend Julian Silvera? Or what should we do, Bobby Montague, with those who killed Melissa Silvera in her matrimonial bedroom while there was no break-in and entry? What do you think we should do, Bobby Montague? What do you think we should do with the murderer of Melissa Silvera? The person who killed Melissa Silvera in her bedroom on the 10th of November, 2003. The person who visited Melissa's funeral just last week. The person who visited Melissa's funeral just last week. What punishment, Bobby Montague? What punishment should be given to the murderer of Melissa Silvera? If we're 14 to 17-year-old Bobby Montague who commit the gravest offense should receive the death penalty. What is the death penalty? What would be the death penalty, Bobby Montague, suited for your friend Julian Silvera, who allegedly murdered his wife cold-bloodedly. And immediately, good evening, Verona Shaw, good evening. Immediately after murdering his wife in cold blood, went on a litany of cover-up of the murder of his wife, assisted possibly by Fitzbailey, Bobby Montague, and all the other cahoots. But Dr. Dayton Campbell, if you know you sign off on anything to remove Melissa Silvera's body from the crime scene, raise your hand, because we not have done with this, yeah. We not done with this yeah, investigation, yeah. Uno can investigate, una investigate. Uno can cover up, una cover up. But as the question them come up, we're going to ask them. Because the whole are no friend, the whole are no criminal, the whole are no corrupt. It is the reason why we have a specific egg in our mouth DPP to always make sure not enough time has passed. Madam DPP, not enough time has passed. When are you going to live up to the integrity of your job? Some people, the PSOJ is saying, this waddle you're on about employment figure, 1, is a lie. 2, the PSOJ is saying that you have failed in preparing this generation on the education front for the economic future. He's also saying that your nonsense about bringing foreign labor to fill the employment gap is another damn mouthful of narrative. Because nobody now go come to Jamaica, come work for the pittance. It now go allow them to live off of it in Jamaica. Never mind to send something back where them come from. Or you go undercut Jamaicans and pay foreign laborer enough to live pan and send home when Jamaicans can't survive pan where them get. We talk about the kickbacks. Could kickbacks be causing the war in the labor camp between labor MPs and labor councillors? We also talk about the parliamentary crook who's shuddering a criminal, who's shuddering an alleged murderer, but is calling for our 14 to 17-year-old to receive the death penalty because taxpayers' money shouldn't be spent and feeding them in prison. At the same time, it is that very politician which is said to have retained the services of an attorney for his alleged murderer, once member of parliament friend. This is where Drive Time London, Lunchtime Global comes to an end this evening. And for those of you in Jamaica who will be going to the poll in the next few weeks, think on the spending power of your local government. Think on the integrity of those you are putting in your local government leadership role, because those are the people who are tasked with the spending power to develop your division and make it socially livable and economically viable. Your MP, your mayors, and your councillors is under a duty to do the thing that we place your MP and your cabinet under. This was Drive Time London, Lunchtime Global. Good evening, and thank you all for being here with us this evening. We really, really appreciate your support. Think on the policies that your local government is advancing. Make sure you point out to your local government, this is what we want for our vote. We want our water system to develop. We want street light in this particular area if you can't fill the whole road. The danger spots. We want this pothole that has been there from Siaga and Manly days. We want you to make sure that it's fixed. We want you to make sure you fix our road, widen them wherever possible, and have a little sidewalk where we feel a little bit safer from the vehicle. Your local government authority is under a duty and has a responsibility to do a lot for your development, the development of your constituent, your division. Thank you very much. We will not keep you any longer. Good evening, and if we won't see you later, we will inform you and let you know. But thank you for always being here. Thank you for the support. Keep the conversation going in the chat, and remember to give us some like and share. If you have not yet subscribed, subscribed to Global TV, please remember to do so, and also tell your friends and your family. This is where we will be having the big discussions and the topic to look at what is happening in our country and how we can look at changing the course ahead. Good evening. This was Drive Time London, Lunchtime Global.